I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist here in the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today as I unbox my latest parcel from Watercolor Online, Michael Solovyev's beautiful products for watercolor artists. So let's get to it. The Master Choice Bock paper in a block. Now, I've used Bauhong before in looser sheets and taped it down to a harder surface, and it's been lovely. This is one of the papers that Michael recommends and has available. This is 140 pound 300 GSM, and it is 15 3/4 by 15 3/4 square block, which is exciting for me. I have not typically painted on square before, so this is going to be really, really exciting to do, and maybe will encourage me to step out a little bit from my typical landscapes and birches. I don't know. We'll see where this takes me, but I am excited for the possibilities. That's for sure. So because it's a block, we've talked about that before, the paper will be secured on all four sides, and there should be a little opening, a little slit where you can stick a palette knife in when you're finished painting to remove the paper from the block. Painting on a block is so wonderful. You can travel with it, and you don't have to worry about extra masking tapes and surfaces, hard backing surfaces to paint on. And so this is, so it's an off-white paper. It feels fairly smooth. It says rough, 100% cotton, mold made, pH neutral, chlorine free, and a natural gelatin sizing used on it. It feels gorgeous. It feels like, it just feels so rich and lovely. I can hardly wait to put some paint on it. So this has a white glue around the edge, and it does tell you here. I remember the first time I ever opened a block, I had no clue. I couldn't figure out what to do with it. So it tells you open here. So, which is helpful because this is white glue. It's sometimes hard to see, but there is a little opening in the glue, and you can. That was easy with the. So this is a protective sheet. See, learn something new every day. Most of the other blocks that I've used have not had a protective sheet. Now I get to see. It is a whiter paper and a much rougher texture, so even more exciting for me because that's my go-to. I'm excited to try this. Now my paints have been sitting with a bit of moisture on them, getting nice and juicy, and I'm just going to attempt a real quick painting, or the basis of a painting, just to see what's going to happen with this paper. And because it's on a block, I can wet the page. And it should soak in some of that water. It will buckle up a tiny bit, but if I leave it on the block until the painting has dried, it should settle right back down. Now I didn't take time on this because I'm just so excited to try it, to tape the edges. Normally I would take some of the solo tape that I use. It's a Watercolor Online product from Michael Solovyev. And it's a masking tape that I really adore using on watercolor paper. And I would tape the edges just so that my design has a bit of a border, but like I say, I'm very excited to get this started, so I didn't worry about that today. And I'm going to just, sometimes I don't worry about filling the whole surface with water, and I'm not really all that careful usually about getting the amounts of water even. Got a little fuzzy on there. Because I like the thought of maybe a little bit of the white of the paper popping through here and there. It's sort of a little surprise, and that's one of the things I do love about watercolor painting, is that there are surprises, and if you approach your painting aware of that and able to appreciate that, things can really become magical. I think I find it just the way it is. So a typical painting similar to the one we did the other day, I will put in a little bit of yellow just to get some sunlight happening. Bring it up into a sky, down into maybe a valley or something here. I have this beautiful color called Moon Glow. It's a Daniel Smith color, and I just adore it. It's gorgeous purples. Let's throw a little bit of that in, make this a little bit... I'm loving how this paper is taking to the pigment and the water and the feel of the brush. Because I use my paints, I call it juicy. Lots of water in my palette on the surface of the paints. It makes the paints nice and lovely and sticky, and I don't need to dig my brush in to get the pigment on my brush. I just touch the surface, and it gives me enough pigment to get on my page. And the Moon Glow is a granulating color, more so than some other Daniel Smith colors. But I do love how it's interacting with the paper. And I'm really loving how oftentimes putting a dark color on a piece of paper, especially wet, if you start it in the middle of the page, you will sometimes get a hard line that's hard to take off. But this doesn't seem to be doing that, and it is granulating and blending in, so that is really, really beautiful. I'm going to put in just a little bit of Mayan dark blue because I love how that goes with the Moon Glow and the quinacridone gold. So the yellow I used was quinacridone gold. Mayan dark blue is quite beautiful for moody skies. You can see how that is just, the moisture on the page is just taking that pigment, and at the edge where I didn't have as much moisture, it's left a little bit of a textured area, which I just love as well. So I like to keep most of my lines going horizontal. So this paper has buckled, you can see that, I'm sure. It has held the moisture amazingly well. And that natural sizing, I'll have to research that more. I don't know what that means, what that is made of, but it seems to be loving the granulation and the pigment that is on the page. Yeah, that is absolutely gorgeous. I can see why Michael recommends this paper. It is really, really lovely. I'm going to try, because one of the things I do like to do with with paints is to see how the pigments lift from your page. And this is often how I make my clouds. Do some random dabbing to form a few clouds happening here. And these bits of paper towel wadded up in your hand are really helpful for areas where, if the pigment and the paper and the water are kind of creating some things that maybe make some harsh edges or are blossoming, and you don't want that in your painting, a light touch with a paper towel is all it takes sometimes to just, and as long as your paper is still damp, which this is just holding that moisture, it's staying damp, as long as there's still dampness, things will continue to move slightly and soften. So you can keep that in mind. Yes, I can see where see where Michael absolutely loves this paper. It is delightful, absolutely delightful. One of the next things I want to do quickly is for me, it's important for the pigments to sit to some extent on the surface, but also to be absorbed as well. And so often in my paintings I will put trees and rocks and shrubbery, and that involves sometimes just getting some really good pigment in, nice and thick. We'll put a little bit of my dark blue. Another one of my all-time favorites is undersea green, and I'm going to use that just because rocks and ground areas aren't a solid color, right? So we're going to throw a bit of that in there, and then I'm going to go into my trusty quinacridone gold. Because I've got quinacridone gold in the sky and Mayan dark blue in the sky, I like to imitate those colors again in my groundwork. And if they show up nice and bright every now and then, I just love that. That's a nice little surprise for the painting. And we're just going to put maybe a bit of a mountain in the background here. And maybe a little bit of a mountain a little bit lower on this side. There's still some moisture on the paper, so it's going to be able to take those trees and soften them a tiny bit as they go up into the hill area. And then I like to have a little bit of perhaps some blue, just for the sake of quickness here. We'll do a little bit of blue for a lake shore. So now, what I want to look for is the removability. Some pigments are staining, some are not. Sometimes you just want to be able to take some of that pigment out and lighten it. And this is working really well for that. You can see where I'm able to pull away a lot of the color if I wanted to. This part up here I think will become shrubbery. But what I also want to check out now is, let's try this piece. Now that this section down here with thicker pigment has had a moment to settle and sort of absorb into the paper, I want to try testing out making some shapes. So this paper feels a bit harder than some of the others, some of the Arches papers or Fluid 100 different brands. But you can see where you can pull away and shape rocks with a harder edge. And a little pile of rocks in the corner. And some shrubbery on top, if you can see that. And then I will go in with just a little bit of a firmer brush to pull away. Oh, it's gone. Let's try this little guy. Make the shoreline, yeah, so it's still able to pull away even though it's been sitting for a little bit. I like that. And I can go in and basically draw with a dry brush. It's kind of like drawing, it's like shaping your areas. And I love that it allows the paints to granulate. That's just a thing of great beauty. Other brushes, but this one will work just as well. And sometimes I like to put a little bit of indication of treetops. If the paper is still damp, as it is, those tree trunks will soften and they will look like they're off in a distance, which will be great. I'll take one of the solo smaller brushes. I mentioned earlier they come to a nice sharp point, so you can go in with that and bring in some nice lines. You can make some trees. There are just some beautiful things that you can do with this. So all in all, I would say that I am 100% happy with my latest package of materials from Watercolor Online, Michael Soloviev Studios. Can't wait to try them more. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. To learn more, subscribe to the channel.